It is UFC pay-per-view Thursday, which means we have Mio on MMA, which means I'm breaking down the UFC 289 card. Quick touch on some things. Number one, still allergy season. We're not done with it. I'm not done with it yet. And as a result, very congested, whatever. It's better than last time. Last time was just terrible. Number two, I have to shout out Eric because he is the first person to give me a tip. He gave me a little bit of money for the podcast. So, hey, thank you, Eric. Thank you very much. And three, Dana White is going out of his way to crap on Jared Gordon, which is funny. I'm not here to defend Jared Gordon for taking a fight while concussed and whatever. I am, however, going to say this, that Dana, the man was knocked out a month and a half ago, I believe, at the time you offered him the fight, on one of your own cards, in the same state, at the same venue as the proposed Jim Miller-Jared Gordon fight. So that is, to me, just a failing on, like, before we get to Jared Gordon, before we get anywhere near Jared Gordon's level of responsibility, we got to talk about the athletic commission, the promotion, every doctor involved in that whole thing. Like, it's ridiculous. Yes, the guy who got knocked out by an illegal headbutt is concussed. Wow. Stunning. Amazing. And then fourth and final, we got to talk about the Kai Kara-France, like Amir Albazi fourth round fiasco. Because this is on a couple levels. On one level, what is the deal with fan hatred for Kai Kara-France? Because, like, a lot of, I'm fairly active on MMA social media and whatever. So it's always weird when, like, a fighter gets a bunch of hate kind of out of nowhere. And that's what it feels like. There are people who are really happy Kai Kara-France lost on, like, a personal level. I don't know what he did. I'm not saying he's, like, a lovely, amazing person. How dare you come for him? I'm just saying, in a sport of jerks, which MMA is, I don't get it. I know some people are referencing, like, him beating Askar Askarov when they thought Askarov should have won. Sure, but that's not his fault. That's the system. That's the judges. That's, like, I'm not looking down on Amir Albazi for taking the win against Kai Kara-France. Like, I have no issue with Albazi. My only hope with Albazi is that the post-fight bravado is hollow, is actually bravado, because if he believes some of the things that he went on to say about how dominant he was and so on, he's just wrong. It's divorced from reality. So, for his own sake, I hope he's treating that fight more as a loss than as a win. But I have nothing against him for that. Like, This is a couple of people's fault. Number one is Chris Lee, the judge who gave the fourth round to Albazi. Number two is the commissions and everyone who's overseen the process that has led to judges like Chris Lee, because this is not Chris Lee's first screw up. I want to be clear. I am fine with a judge getting something wrong. I am fine with it. It's the fact that we go from judge got something wrong to judge then proceeds to judge another high-profile fight, gets that wrong, and then we repeat. Like, there's no corrective measures. There's no inquisition. There's no review. There's no nothing. I don't know what Chris Lee's deal is. He's still better than Doug Crosby, but that's not saying much. But that's about it. And the response from the commission is kind of horrifying because Ariel Helwani revealed that he got a text from Mike Mazzulli, I think is how it said, being like, why don't you come down to the open to the public free scoring school, judges school that the commission does? And it's like, I've been to those, admittedly up here in Canada as opposed to the States, but it's the same unified rules, the same ideas. Essentially, there are little differences state to state, commission to commission, but like the same conceptual thing. And I've been there. I've taken that. I've gotten certified as a judge. And I have no idea what in the fourth round Chris Lee would have scored for Albazi. I have no idea. Like, taking the course won't help anyone get clarity on this. It is a bad card. Full stop. Nothing around that. There's no, well, the fans just aren't educated enough. No. Chris Lee is not educated enough, apparently. That's what we got off this. That's what we have. So that was a completely lame duck like comeback from the commissions. Don't get me wrong. If you have the chance to go and do the scoring school, sorry, I may snort a couple times here. If you have a chance to do that, sure, it'll give you a greater insight, whatever. Like, it's not a bad thing. But like the idea that like you can go through that and you're like, oh no, I totally understand what that judge scored the fight for. No, you don't. You end up still confused. It's a failure. And more than that, it's a failure of educating your own fan base. If indeed you had that as a correct scorecard, and we just don't know. Is the magic like go forward? Are we back to go forward and you win the round? Is that where we are? I don't know. It's a terrible scorecard. I don't know why people are happy about this, and I don't understand the response from the commission. So there you go. Roll it all out. Let's get to the card. UFC 289 in Vancouver, Canada. Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. Actually, what is the name of the arena? I actually know what arena it is, and I just don't. Yeah. Rogers Arena. Right. It's one of the many Rogers arenas in Canada. We're very boring with our names. It's like it's all banks and telecom companies. And like there's nothing else really. There's a couple of stadiums. There's McMahon Stadium, Commonwealth Stadium, a couple others. But for the most part, like it is all just like Scotiabank Center, BMO Field, whatever. It's bank or telecom company. I don't have much to say about this fight card. Now, to be clear, there are good fights on this card. I'm looking forward, like hell, to Charles Oliveira, Beneil Dariush. I'm looking forward to that so much. But the main event is not great. I appreciate Amanda Nunes, but she's just kind of like way ahead of the division, and it's hard to find an interesting fight for her. Mike Malott, who is from my neck of the woods and is the closest thing I have to a hometown fighter, is in the third to last fight of the night. That is not deserved, or it's not deserved is the wrong word. It's not exciting because this is what his third UFC fight. I want to say, beating Mickey Gall, beating Johan Leones. Yeah, I'm right. And Contender Series fight, but like his third fight. Adam Fugitt's third fight. Fugit is 1-1 in the UFC. Dan Ige and Nate Landwehr is a war and a half, but it's a war and a half that has no real divisional relevance. Eric Andrews and Marc-Andre Barrio is straight up depressing as a main card fight. I do like Nasruddin Imel versus Chris Curtis. I do like Jasmine Jasudavicius versus Miranda Maverick on the undercard. But then we get to Ayman Zahabi, Arichi Lang. It's a fight I could do without. Blake Bilder versus Kyle Nelson. It's a fight I could do without. I've been saying this. I've been crapping on Kyle Nelson's fights for a long time, despite his Canadian heritage. David Dvorak versus Steve Erzeg. Although that one could be fun, but I also could see that just being like very one-sided. And then Diana Balbita versus Maria Oliveira. That one is a mess. Now, I understand. A lot of fights were supposed to be on this card that are not. You were supposed to have Wonderboy Stephen Thompson versus Michelle Pereira. That would have been dope. We were supposed to have Matt Schnell versus David Dvorak, which is a way better. Well, it's very much in the same vein as the Erzeg Dvorak fight, while having more stakes and more even par on reputation, if nothing else. And of course, it was supposed to be Nunes versus Pena. This is kind of a lateral move from that, putting Aldana in there. And then it was supposed to have Chris Daukaus versus Khalil Roundtree. Admittedly, I was not looking forward to that fight. The reason straight up being that I don't think going to 205 fixes anything for Chris Daukaus. Spoiler from when he does make his 205 debut. And then Hakeem Dawodo versus Lucas Almeida, that would have been really fun. But like, this is an objectively, given the state of worldwide MMA right now, the quality of fighters available in most weight classes down to like the top 50, this is not good. And that bears needs repeating with Nick Maynard going out there and being like, name the last bad card. There you go. And we have to pay for this one. Like, to be clear, this one's not even like it's on ESPN Plus, it's on ESPN, it's part of what you're paying for anyways, whatever. You're not paying directly for it. It's, I hate the term free card, but it's a free card. No, this is a pay-per-view that you want me to shell out money for. And the main card has one fight that is both pay-per-view quality and worth watching. And two fights that are pay-per-view quality. I'll give the title fight that. But this is a one-fight pay-per-view card, which has been the knock on boxing vis-a-vis Dana White for ages. Where are the champions who are going to say that this is a good card? And no, they're making money is not a defense on that. Anyways, I have spent 11 minutes not talking about fights. Let's talk about fights. Here we go. Oh, that actually felt good. It cleared a science there. Oh, okay. Amanda Nunes, Irene Aldana. Okay. This fight feels like a couple of fights that we've seen Nunes fight. Most notably, during Durandamy. You have Aldana, who is not hard to take down. She got taken down by Macy Chiasson, by Holly Holm, even Raquel Pennington. She doesn't fight at an insane pace. She does have some very, very nice moments of lethal striking. Like, she'll, pretty much every fight you watch of hers, she'll have this like really sweet 1 to 2 to 3 moments that look really, really nice, particularly on the counter where she hits somebody very, very hard, very, very clean. If she can do that to Nunes, she can theoretically put her out. I mean, Pena was able to hurt Nunes. Aldana is a harder hitter. But the thing is that we go back to that whole, she doesn't handle pressure that well. She does not fight at any kind of insane high pace. And the wrestling is not great. And yes, she's a better grappler than, say, Germaine de Randamie, but she's not a super lethal grappler. There's not going to be a triangle or an armbar or whatever from bottom. If Nunes gets in the guard, there is no reason to believe Aldana poses a threat to her there. So that kind of leaves us as the only real option to be like, I agree Aldana's got this, is if Nunes comes in and fights like she did in the first Pena fight to a certain degree, where it just looks like she's not fully invested, she's not fully focused, she's resting on her laurels or not interested in fighting anymore, whatever the case may be, she gets caught. And that's essentially all you're hoping for if you're on the Aldana bandwagon, unfortunately. This is a fight where Aldana is facing somebody who is of similar height and reach to her, an advantage she usually has, a fighter that is more powerful than her and stronger than her. These are both things that she usually has advantages on, and I just don't see it. Like, it's one of those sad things where, like, if Aldana gets her hand raised and is the new women's bantamweight champion, it's essentially because Nunes is done. That's honestly what it feels like. Now, again, disclaimer, I thought that about Pena. I really did. But Pena at least brings a fight to her. I don't think Aldana can do the same. Nunes is only a 315 to 350 favorite. Sorry. Aldana plus 250 to plus 260. I got Nunes by decision, and like even from a betting standpoint, I need more plus odds on Aldana before I'll actually lay it down. She is one of the bigger underdogs on the card. I do have to look up odds for one fight. It's the one coming up. Who are bigger underdogs in her? I want to say the biggest dog on the card. Yeah, here we are. Jasmine Jasudavicius is the biggest underdog on the card. We'll talk about that more when we get there, but that is weird. It is weird to me. It's not the answer to anyone being the biggest underdog on this card and it not being Steve Urseg is a bit of a problem, honestly. So I am going to queue up the betting odds thing here because I forgot that I had not found betting odds for Charles Oliveira versus ya boy Beneil Dariush, which is coming up. Do they really not have odds for this fight? I'm going to be very, very disappointed. I see no odds. I see no odds for this fight. Huh. Okay, co-main event. This is the one to get excited about. This is the one fight on the card. Beneil Dariush versus Charles Oliveira. Super interesting fight. These two guys are incredibly similar to one another. They're both guys who are known for their BJJ, but have developed good striking games, effective striking games, but messy striking games at the same time. They have shown a level of takedowns that a lot of BJJ guys do not get to, and they are underrated athletes. Mostly because I don't think either of them look super athletic. So when they go out there and you get the getting off the bus test, the eyeball test, they don't excite you. But like you watch Beneil Dariush wrap up with people, super strong dude. You look at Charles Oliveira's ability to go pace and ability to scramble. There's obviously a lot of athletic ability there. Can both of these guys win? Absolutely. Charles Oliveira could possibly pull out what he did against Tony Ferguson, which is take a dangerous striker and just keep pressing him with wrestling, keep doing it. The big problem with that, of course, is that Beneil Dariush more or less faced that Matthias Gamrot. He was able to shut it down. How much better is Oliveira than Gamrot at wrestling? I would say a little bit. I think he's a notably more explosive wrestler. I think Gamrot's real problem is there's no explosivity to him. But it does feel like something that Dariush should have answers for. And they're both very dangerous clinch strikers. So that should lead to some amazing clinch exchanges that I am looking forward to. But then we get back to the whole Dariush super strong in the clinch and super good at delivering power at like awkward angles. That tends to favor him. Charles Oliveira does tend to get hit really hard. He's gotten better at it lately. Gotten a lot better at it, actually. He's now seeing the punches, but he's not seeing them in time to avoid them. So really what's happening is he's just not getting finished by them. He still has a really hard time gauging range without being connected to the opponent. And Beneil Dariush can capitalize on that. Dariush is, I think, the better striker, although, again, he himself is incredibly messy. He'll see red. He'll go for the kill. He'll bring out his barbarian berserker side to him. And he does this all the while not having a particularly great or amazing chin. Because we've seen really both of these guys have a bunch of like early on losses that don't really make any sense. And like in hindsight, is like, I want to say Dariush lost to like Ramsey Nijem. And it's like, that's weird. And like he got destroyed by Ramsey Nijem. Like it was not like a close robbery decision or anything. It was, you got run over. And like the same with like Alexander Hernandez and even like getting rear naked choked by Michael Chiesa. It's like, what is this? And like Oliveira has kind of the same things. I think he has lost to Nick Lentz, doesn't he? Did he lose one of those he had a fierce rivalry with Nick Lentz. That's enough said, I think. But like, yeah, getting guillotined by Anthony Pettis, getting guillotined by Ricardo Lamas, getting knocked out by Cub Swanson, which is not a bad loss by any means, but it kind of shows up. The Cerrone one, the Jim Miller one. He never lost to Lentz. There was an illegal knee in one of them. But yeah, I mean, when you have a 3-part trilogy with Nick Lentz and go on to become a UFC champion, it's a little bit weird. Is all I'm getting at with that one. I've gone back and forth on who I think is going to win. Like, does Dariush get chin checked? Does Dariush get pressured? Does Dariush end up doing some silly things where he goes berserk and Oliveira can capitalize? It's a definite maybe. Is Dariush just simply too strong, too good at counter-striking, too good at finding the button, too hard to take down for Oliveira to deal with? Is Oliveira a guy who is used to people being intimidated by his guard? Does it all fall apart with a guy who just is not intimidated by that guard? Because I don't think Beneil Dariush, and he shouldn't be, is any remotely intimidated by the grappling chops of Charles Oliveira. I think he'll go into the lion's mouth and do his thing and probably say something really, really intriguing and controversial in the post-fight because he's a Middle Eastern Christian. It's always fun when he says something along those lines. So I am going with Benny Dariush, possibly by decision. I could also see a late stoppage. I'm going to go with decision. But TKO or submission, both of these are like on the table. I love Charles Oliveira. I love Beneil Dariush. I hope this is a great fight. I hope the winner gets a title shot. Maybe that's also coloring my view because I think the UFC has publicly committed to giving Dariush a title shot if he wins. And I don't believe Charles Oliveira, given that he lost the belt to Islam Makhachev, has the same thing. So I think that could be playing a little bit in the back of my mind, that I do want this to be finally the moment Dariush gets a title shot as opposed to a Gaethje or Poirier again. I'm just not intrigued by Gaethje Poirier fighting Khabib too. I'm just not. Which is weird because I love both those fighters. But yeah, Dariush for the win. Mike Malott, Adam Fugit. These are both guys who always feel way more experienced than they are because they have a little bit of that veteran hitch, that little veteran jank that guys develop, that little off textbook thing that they have that makes them awkward and hard to face off against the strikers as opposed to just structureless and bad. It's kind of like what you get with raw fighters, but like more considered, which makes sense because they are actually 31 and 34 respectively, which again, with their fight counts, is a little bit older. I mean, like Malott's on 11 fights, Fugit's on 12, so it's a little bit weird that they're like in their early 30s, in their kind of prime, and they're getting towards the end of their, where people should be like going on for a title run and stuff. So it's a little bit weird. They're both finishers. They they do it without being super big hitters or lethal grapplers. They're just very good at capitalizing on awkward moments in a fight that leads to the ability to be stopped. Malott, I think, is just a slightly better athlete, a slightly cleaner technician in really every regard. He's also from my end of the country. Now, I will say this. This is it's a weird third fight of the night, or third last fight of the night, because I feel like they're just like on this like, hey, we got a Canadian, we can stub him there, and it's going to be a big hometown reaction. He's from my neck of the woods. This fight is happening in Byron's neck of the woods. For the record, when I went to visit Byron, my famous cohort on the racing commentary, and a guy who I've done a lot of like gaming with over time, and he's been a guest on the podcast. That's an 8-hour flight. It's a long way away. I am going with Malott by submission. Fugit gives up submission opportunities with a fair regularity. Malott is a guy who, if you give it to him, he'll take it. He's very good, very opportunistic in that way. I have him picking up the win here. He's a minus 195 to minus 225 favorite. Fugit plus 165 to plus 175. It's just not a pay-per-view fight. Dan Ige versus Nate Landwehr, I'm sure, is going to be an awesome, awesome war. I really am. The length of my breakdown of this fight does not correspond. That's the one. Correspond to how excited I am about it. It's just that it's kind of a really simple fight. Dan Ige is the better fighter. He is the better athlete. He is faster, stronger, hits harder, cleaner boxer, cleaner wrestler, cleaner grappler. Nothing Nate Landwehr does is clean. Landwehr will make him fight for like the entire time until he either gets knocked out or loses the decision. And there's just not really a pathway to victory for Landwehr here. I've got him losing the fight by. Do I see a finish? Nah, I don't think I do. Ige by decision. He is a bettable minus 250 to minus 275 favorite. Landwehr is plus 200 to plus 210. Ige really only loses the very best in the division. We see him lose a lot because he's lost to Mozar Evelev, Josh Emmett, the Korean Zombie before he was kind of really faded out, and like Calvin Kattar. Even his loss, like way back when to Julio Arce, was like a big feather in the cap of Arce, and a show that when Arce has his game on, he's really, really dangerous. It's just he doesn't always have that game. He's incredibly inconsistent. Eric Anders versus Marc-Andre Barrio is the opener for the pay-per-view. I like Marc-Andre Barrio. I'm a big fan. I do not like Eric Anders. He's a guy who I really wish I could like because NFL level athlete coming to MMA. This was so exciting, and he's developed the most boring swinging cling style of all time. There is just nothing to get excited there. It's all the check marks and all the possibility, but it is dull, uninteresting, and it does not win fights in a clean, like obvious manner. He's on a 2-fight skid as far as I'm concerned because the win over Kyle Daukaus was more about Kyle Daukaus' face being just broken up. So I'm taking Barrio to win with his typical push into the clinch, high volume, high work rate style. But I am concerned because he was getting kind of walloped by Julian Marquez until Marquez gassed. And he did get really shown the door by Fluffy Hernandez in a scary way that makes me wonder if you present him with someone possibly stronger than him, and Anders may be, that his game just kind of falls apart. But I have to pick Barrio. He is the -135 to -146 favorite. Anders is 110 to 116 on the underdog side of things. Probably a close decision. Both of these guys are king of split decisions. Going with Barrio. Nasruddin Imavov versus Chris Curtis. Our biggest, I think, height discrepancy on the card of 5 inches. Although somehow Curtis actually has a ½ inch of reach. I'm of two minds at this fight. On one hand, Chris Curtis trains with Sean Strickland. He was part of the process to develop a late notice strategy to beat Imavov, which Strickland did really easily. So you would think, same coaching, Strickland is there to give tips, everything. This should actually be something that Curtis can do. He's actually, if anything, a deeper striker than Strickland is. He's hard to take down. He's not someone who's ever really been cowed by power and size, which Imavov tends to win fights because people smash into him and they're like, oh my God, he's huge and so strong. He's a 6'3" jacked up middleweight. Like, this is horrifying. That shouldn't happen for Curtis. But, oh my God, did I make the mistake of watching Jack Hermanson versus Chris Curtis again? It's just, he has such a lack of pressuring footwork. He really is a guy who is used to people coming to him so that he can come up with his big counter-striking stuff and do his thing. And my God, could I see Imavov, and particularly an MMA factory fighter in general, because this is their gimmick, this is their style, just dancing around the outside and, for lack of a better term, fighting like a... There you go. I won't say the word, but there it is. So the question really boils down to, has Chris Curtis taken a step forward, pun intended, and will take the Strickland game plan to become a more varied fighter and someone that can force a fight on someone, that can impose on the fight? I'm going to say no because it hasn't happened in 40 professional fights. I've got Imavov by decision. It still doesn't feel right. Still doesn't feel good. Miranda Maverick, biggest favorite on the card. Like I said, we're going to be talking about that because she's -300 to -333. Odds. Imavov is a -150 to -160 favorite. Curtis is +120 to +130. Perfectly fine with those odds. Maverick is the biggest favorite on this card, -330, 300 to 333. And Jasmine is a very bettable +235 to +240. Don't get me wrong here. I am picking Maverick to win. I do think that she's the more physical fighter. I think that even though Erin Blanchfield was able to create a constant pressure grappling-based game to beat her, and to a degree Macy Barber did the same thing, but I thought, one, Maverick won the fight, and two, Barber is actually a really, really confident and physical fighter, and Jasmine Jasudavicius does not seem to have that same level of physicality and does not seem to have that same level of confidence. There's a hesitation. There's a a nervousness, a final step still missing to her game. But she is 5'7" and she is huge. So, I mean, could she bully Maverick and do her thing and do kind of what she did to Gabriela Fernandez, to Miranda Maverick? Maybe. But I don't think so. And I'm not picking it. I am going with Miranda Maverick by decision. Ayman Zahabi versus Arichi Lang. I don't really know what to make of this fight. I've never been a big believer in Ayman Zahabi. Just full stop. He's a pretty big guy for the division. He's got nice power. He's got nice counter striking, but it's too slow and it's too unvaried. I mean, it's too reactive. This would be Arichi Lang's best win because his biggest wins are Jay Perron and Cameron Else, who are not good. But he does have athletic upside. Like he is a physical specimen. He is aggressive. He fights at a high pace. He does multiple different things and brings a wrestling and striking attack to the table. And Zahabi's biggest win is like Ricky Tercios in a fight where Ricky Tercios fought really, 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 really bizarre. I'm going with Arichi Lang by decision. He is the favorite, minus 115 to minus 125. Zahabi minus 105 to plus 108. If you want to bet on Zahabi, that'd be fine. Again, my usual disclaimer about betting: don't bet what you can't lose, because MMA is a weird thing, and like I don't know, this fight could look like greatly different than what I don't even know what this fight looks like in my head. Blake Bilder versus Kyle Nelson. I'm never picking Kyle Nelson. He's super low output. He's big. He's strong. That's it. Like he hits reasonably hard. Like he has like good single strike form, but like there's no combinations. He's slow for the division. He's predictable. He gets tired even fighting at a slow pace. Bilder, I have questions about. I have a lot of questions about, but like he went out there against Shane Young, against a guy who would ask some questions, and he passed them with flying colors. And I mean, Nelson's thing is just going to be like, how do you handle a dude who's really big? And I'm hoping the answer is Bilder will just put a pace on him and hit some counter strikes because Nelson's very counterable, and be the athlete, be the physical freak that he kind of is. I still don't know if Bilder's like long term, but I don't know how Nelson's here at 1-4-1 in the UFC. He should be 1-5 because that draw with Doo Ho Choi kind of is bullcrap. And also Doo Ho Choi is in like a really, really bad place now. Like when the highlight of your UFC run is a draw with Doo Ho Choi, we gotta talk. It's kind of weird because like my understanding is it's a 4-fight deal he signed. Why is he still here? I don't know. Probably to give Doo Ho Choi a win, and now they're just honoring his contract. Radek Dvorak David Dvorak. Sorry, Radek Dvorak was a hockey player. David Dvorak versus Steve Erceg. I like Steve Erceg. He looks fun. He looks like a high-paced fighter with an aggressive sub-hunting style and pretty balls to the walls as a striker. And he might be good. He might actually be legitimately good. But his biggest win is Shannon Ross. Shannon Ross is not UFC caliber. We saw that on the Contender Series. We saw that when Ross somehow ended up in the UFC. I legitimately don't understand how that happened. Dvorak's only 2 losses in like 11 years is Manal Kopp and Matthias Nicolau. They are elite guys, top 10, if not top 5 fighters in the global flyweight division. I don't know. Like, I can't pick Erceg. I can't. I really can't. I don't get like super athlete vibes off of him. And Dvorak is, a well-rounded guy who generally has answers for everything. Like he's a decent striker, decent kickboxer, good grappler, good athlete. There's nothing amazing about him. It's kind of why he lost to, say, Manal Kopp or Matthias Nicolau. But like he's a well put together, well schooled, very good fighter, and Erceg doesn't seem ready for that. It's just a massive step up. I guess I am a little bit curious. I've got Dvorak by submission though, probably like a rear naked choke. Erceg does give up opportunities to go after his neck. Dvorak is only a 270 to 295 favorite. Like, that's a big favorite. Don't get me wrong. That's a big favorite. But, like, against a debuting guy and a top, probably top 10 in the division. Let's see here. I don't put a lot of stock in the UFC's rankings. So let's pull up the Tapology rankings here real quick. Where do they have David Dvorak? Oh, they do not have him top 10. Okay, he's 12th. But yeah, you got the number 12 rated guy in the world taking on a guy who probably is not on the first page of these rankings. Urseg. Yeah, he's not in the top 50. So, I don't know. Best of luck to Steve Urseg. And if there's one pick I want to get wrong here, it's probably him, because if he beats David Dvorak, we got ourselves a little something here. We got ourselves a little something if he beats David Dvorak. Diana Belbita versus Maria Oliveira is the opener. This is a mess. These are two girls who get wins by being tall, and that is not a recipe for like long-term success. And I don't mean that they're really good at fighting long, or they're really depth at range management, because they aren't. Oliveira is actively bad at it. It's just more that, you roll up into the cage with the reach that they have, and girls don't really have answers necessarily. I don't know. I don't like either of their games. I really don't. I just I'm trying to summon something for this fight. I'm sorry. I just can't do it. I'm going with Belbita to win by decision, because I think Oliveira's flaws are worse. She can't manage range. She doesn't seem to be particularly physical in the clinch, despite being big. She doesn't seem to have great counter wrestling or get up game. And Belbita can wrestle to a degree. And if nothing else, actually does seem like a reasonably strong and solid athlete. Just someone who needs to get with a coach who's going to be like, all right, we're going to take your 5'7" frame and we're going to turn you into this jab, low kick destroyer at strawweight. Because my lord, you have a 68-inch reach and you're at strawweight. I don't know. I don't know. Belbita by decision, like I said. Very even fight on the betting odds, which is to be expected. -110, basically both ways. All right. So that is it for this card. Like I said, I got it done in under 40 minutes, and I spent 10 minutes yakking about other stuff. It's not super interesting. That doesn't mean that doesn't mean that there aren't good fights. The co-main event, dope. Nate Landwehr versus Dan Ige. Dope fight. Steve Urseg, Dvorak could be really, really fun. Chris Curtis versus Nasruddin Yumavov could be fun. Also could be terrible. And I don't think there's a lot of middle ground there. That's the horrifying thing about that fight. But yeah, it's just not a good pay-per-view offering. So, with that said, enjoy it, and I'll talk to you after the fights.